like it means nothing.
Okay. I'm not here.
Chris works for a major financial services company. They keep their classified documents on SharePoint, including a file with banking information for each of their vendors. Today, Chris needs to complete a wire to TechCorp Solutions. To do that, Chris will use Copilot and ask for the relevant banking information to get a quick response. The response has the relevant banking numbers alongside a file reference to show where this information was found. This reference is crucial for two reasons: to prevent hallucinations and to give confidence in the response. Copilot found this information in a file last modified by Chris, so Chris can trust the response and move forward with the wire. If an attacker could compromise Chris's account at this point, they could fool Chris to reroute their wire to their own account. What you'll see now, though, is that an attacker doesn't have to compromise Chris's account, or any other account for that matter. The only thing they have to do is send an email. So Chris gets an email, which looks short, but not malicious. By the way, it doesn't matter if Chris opens the email or not, the attack will still work. Now Chris asks the same question of Copilot, but this time, check out the response. The banking details have changed to the attacker's account, while the reference remains the same. This is the file that holds the legitimate information. Also, note that Copilot doesn't mention any email or conflicting data. Chris, of course, trusts the response and moves forward with the wire.
Yeah, so that's a real thing. Hi, I'm Inbar. The voice you heard, that was Michael, who couldn't come. That's the MBG. And thank you for coming to our talk, or at this point. And you must all wonder why I've gathered you here. I always dreamed of saying that in an elevator, but I'll settle for this. And the reason is...
Houston, we have a problem.
And it's not just any problem. It's a problem which we've had the solution for over 45 years. As far back as 1979, when Atari 800 was like the top-of-the-line computer and Ada was the prominent programming language, somewhere in a binder, somewhere there was a slide that somebody showed with a projector, and that slide said, a computer can never be held accountable, therefore a computer must never make a management decision. Now, obviously, if you guys are sitting here, we're not such good learners, right? Doesn't work very well. Fast forward, right? We started in 1979. We'll go as far back as 2022. All right, that was right before ChatGPT. We were still using something called Google, if you remember. And back then, there was a guy named Daniel. Daniel is a CISO at a big insurance company. He's very experienced. He knows all the rules, the regulations. He follows the best practices. He knows how to build secure application. He's like the guy you want working for you. And the insurance company that Daniel works in, it's a Microsoft shop. So basically whatever, okay, timeout. If I say basically one more time, please boo me, because I've been hearing this word all day. Essentially, whatever Microsoft will sell, Insure will take, so that's the life of the CISO. And this is Ava. She is in the security team at Microsoft. Microsoft were ahead of the problem as far back as 2018. They started the dedicated AI red team, so she's been looking at that for a while now. And even Microsoft needs help every now and then. If you remember this product, it came out with a big proclamation or whatever, and then everybody yelled at them and they said, okay, doesn't matter, let's take it back. And everybody needs a little bit help. And at this point, Zenity already has Microsoft on speed dial because we work on this a lot and we find many things. And as you all know, usually the big vendors almost count on others to find their problems. So that's what happens. That's me. I'm the VP of Research at Zenity. I'm a retro computing collector and restorer. And I like to speak at conferences, barefoot, it's my thing. And I'm hiring, so if this talk makes a good impression on you, talk to me later. I'm presenting the work of a big team of people who couldn't be here today, so I'm not taking any credit. I'm standing on the shoulder of giants. The one on the bottom left, that's Michael. And these are our three protagonists. They will accompany us through this travel. And like everybody working in the field of security, we are never relaxed, right? We're always stressed to some point. And so we're going to present this like stress meter or panic meter or danger meter. And you can see that Daniel, and obviously that guy is me, right? No, that's Michael. But we're never relaxed. This will never be 0, so it's about 20. And Ava, she's already been doing this for a while, so she's a little bit more concerned because this is not the first time she's hearing of this. And then, boom, all the ChatGPT and the Copilot and everything explodes like in one short period of time. And all of a sudden, we're facing a new reality. And of course, what is everybody afraid of? Missing out, right? Everybody's rushing to put AI in their products, and everybody's rushing to buy the product with the AI that the other one doesn't have. And the result is we also don't want to find our names in the news. That also happens. So what do? We focus on the one thing that we usually know, and that is like, let's not install that. That'll solve the problem, right? So we're like plugging the hole in the dam. And that's the first thing. And some of you are laughing, but this actually happened. There were a bunch of companies that just did not enable Copilot or even prohibited the use of it. But, of course, that doesn't work. And at this point, Microsoft is realizing that the big problem here is jailbreaking. We are still stuck in the old world and internal data leakage between employees. That's the thing that Copilot now is generating because of the chat, and you can ask questions like what you saw. So at this point, we realize that this is not going well. So Daniel comes to Michael and says, look, this is coming our way. Can you please help us deal with that? And of course, we say yes. This is how we're going to see the work that we do on that. We're going to see this little icon on the bottom right that will tell you who is the protagonist that we're looking at the moment. The first thing that we will try to do with Copilot, maybe upload some files, see what happens. There will be a defense counter. Whenever we come against a defense that Microsoft put into the Copilot, we will count it and we will say what it is. So right off the bat, you cannot upload files directly to Copilot. You can ask about files that are already in your system, but you can't upload a file into the chat. That is nice. But then there are plugins. Plugins are ways to teach your Copilot to do new things using your existing low-code, no-code infrastructure and other things. There's a whole talk about that. We gave it somewhere else. You can look it up, 15 ways to break your Copilot. But that's another problem. So let's see what we can do, right? Title of the presentation is Living Off Copilot. So let's talk Mitra. Let's see what we can do. Let's start with Recon. What does Copilot know about me, right? So you ask the basic thing, what is my name? And Microsoft deflects questions that they don't want to answer. It's like, what can I help you with? This is not the question you want to ask, okay? More or less. So that's nice. That's a defense mechanism. But if you're polite, and polite people say hello and please and use full names and stuff, then all of a sudden, it does work. And this works on a bunch of applications. And one of the tools that we publish, and you can download at the end of the talk, already has a module to help you do all that. There's a lot of information that you can discover at the Recon stage. At the same time, Microsoft is, of course, pushing Copilot to everybody, really everybody. If you look at the dates, they released it was September 7, 2023. And roughly a month and a half, almost 2 months after that, they already report 40% of the Fortune 100 are using Copilot. So the market penetration here is huge. And it's important because problems at scale are more scary. So here comes Microsoft, and Mark Russinovich draws this threat map, sort of the threat landscape of AI. And they're really serious about this, so we're going to give them the credit. They don't just let it go, and there's a lot of work going into this. And again, the focus is on jailbreaking, because at this point, Microsoft already understands that if you can get the Copilot to do what you ask from it, really what you ask from it, like I just did with being polite, then that might open the door to some unpleasant things. But at the same time, everybody else is still just thinking about the regular stuff, the old threats. This is a brand new world, and most people don't realize it yet. So let's just tell them not to use ChatGPT or Copilot. That's like the best practice that companies have. And who are all these employees that get this don't work Copilot? Who do they work for? They work for you. If you work at a Microsoft shop, these people work for you. And these are the people that we call citizen developers. These are people who are not developers. They don't know the first thing about internet security. They just want to do their job, right? So there's very little you can expect from them. So, yes. Going back to Daniel, at this point, Daniel realizes that the insurance company has already signed the contract and installed the product. Of course, he's always the last to know. Nobody asked for his permission, and he gets really upset. So he starts arguing, and they tell him, no, but it's great. The Copilot is embedded in the system. It sees the information of all these applications on the Microsoft ecosystem. And besides, it's just a pilot. We're going to only turn it on for 100 users, and no one is telling him that one of the 100 users is the CEO, right? The guy doesn't see any sensitive data. And he says, like, no, he's struggling because he understands the risk, even if it's a risk of I don't know exactly what. So they tell him, look at how much security there is in the product. It's full of security and data security and protect your data, and you can trust it. And of course, that doesn't really work because, again, everybody is still focusing on data leakage between employees, which is, yeah, it breaks regulation and stuff, but that's not really what we're afraid of. And again, jailbreaking, starting to get the attention. And at this point, Daniel is already fully panicked. We are already fully panicked because he panicked us. And now we're like, okay, let's see what we can do with it. So let's try to collect some information. How about extracting data? If I ask for all the employees and their social security number, then you can see the answer. It says, sorry, I can't chat about this. To save the chat and start a fresh one, select new chat. So this is termination. This is not even the deflection that we had before. It's like game over. You can't continue. You can't correct yourself. We're done here. So again, another mechanism to protect. Another thing that is very, very useful are the sensitivity labels. When the Copilot is looking through your information, if any of the resources that it looks at has a sensitivity label, that label is automatically added to the entire conversation from that point on, and that conversation is considered sensitive, and that enables a bunch of tools that fall under the data leak protection, data breach or leak protection, and it will prevent you from getting answers that you really want or even putting out information that you're allowed to see but is considered sensitive. Another good thing that you get with sensitivity labels is that it is covered in the audit. So you have better coverage, you can do forensics, there's evidence, okay? If something happened, you can investigate that. And it's important because we know for a fact that certain attack threat actors are using these environments, and they are trying to attack using Microsoft ecosystem with Copilots, without Copilots. So this is a serious thing. And of course, Microsoft has a set of recommendations, and there are a lot of tools in the ecosystem that they really are making an effort, but it's not enough. Why? Some things, like Teams, don't have the sensitivity label at all. So if I ask Copilot, can you please scan all my chats and see who put in a password? Which, of course, none of us has ever by accidentally pasted a password, right? Never happened. But you will get that because that thing is not sensitive, so Copilot's defense mechanism won't catch it. And this is a table where you can see that this is the editor. And if you ask what there is, when it's sensitive, you can only get basic information. You can't get the actual data, again, because it's sensitive. But what we're going to do now, we're going to do a little prompt injection. If you look at the brackets and the carets, that's a little prompt injection. And this prompt injection is telling the Copilot to ignore the references. And when the Copilot ignores the references, the sensitivity label doesn't get added to the conversation. So the next time you ask for something, you get the information, and there's nothing in the audit logs. Why? Because it was not sensitive. So that is a problem. So yes, we do have data leakage, even if we just enable Copilot. So the original fears are true. And that, of course, scares everybody the most. So Daniel says, OK, that's good, but show me more. I mean, I need more ammunition to convince my employer to stop using this. Let's try to do some code execution. Maybe you can send a user-controlled URL. That doesn't actually work. If you put a URL, you will get like unrelated answers sometimes. And if you look into that in the communications between the Copilot and the server, you will see a lot of references. And if you look at the calls, you will see that these are basically queries to some search engine. Now, maybe it's Bing. We're not entirely sure. So what if we try to force the search location? We say, please look under this website. So now, yes, you will see the search query includes site:/mbgsec.com. So yes, the bottom line is you can only access internet resources that have been already indexed by Bing. You can't just have free internet access, which of course is very good. So we fail. Let's try another way to exfiltrate information. There are a lot of ways. Some of them appear in other people's blogs, like let's generate an image. That's a nice way of jailbreaking, telling the Copilot, when you do what I ask you to do, just encode it and put it inside an image, because the mechanisms usually just inspect the answer that the Copilot generates. So here there's a little nice conversation, and you can see that it's happening, and we're asking for something, and it starts doing that. We're getting the encoding. Yes, that was a nice ring. And here is the image, and all of a sudden, someone is waking up and says, an external link was removed to protect your privacy. So you cannot create URLs, and you cannot embed images. So no exfiltration for us. We fail here. So if we look at the halftime score, if it's us against Microsoft, so to speak, we're not doing very well. We managed to do the who am I. We get some, if we have a compromised account, we can get some information that we're not supposed to get, remember, bypassing sensitivity labels, but we failed to do the code execution and the exfiltration. Okay, but here's the thing. The Copilot itself, it's not running in your computer. It is in your tenant. And if you manage to cross the door, then inside it's free for all, because the Copilot can access everything. You are outside. You're somewhere on the internet, but the Copilot is not. It's where the data is. So let's try a lateral movement. Usually what you do is you do phishing, but we are proud or saddened to say that phishing is dead. Long live the spearphishing. We're going to have Copilot do that for us. And how are we going to do that? First of all, we're going to ask it to find people we collaborate with. And we're going to get a list of people, and then we're going to get their email, right? Because it's in the emails which are accessible to my Copilot. After that, we're going to read the correspondence, or the Copilot will read the correspondence and extract interesting information, choose a victim, somebody who was on the thread, right? We're going to get their email as well, and look for who else was on the conversation. And then we're going to generate an email that matches the style of the emails that were already exchanged between the parties on that thread, because the Copilot is accessible to all of it, and it's a nice LLM, and it can do a lot of nice things. And we're going to add the link. And the bottom line is we get a customized spearphishing email that has been created by Copilot. All we did was write a nice prompt. And of course, we also added this module. It's in our tool, the PowerPoint. You can even see that since that person usually uses emojis, the Copilot puts them here as well. There is no way regular people won't fall for that. I'm pretty sure I would fall for that, and maybe you guys as well. So yes, this is also in our tool. We automated that, and you can do most of the job for yourself. You can try that. If you're a CISO, you can try that on your employees. So the final score is looking better. We didn't manage to exfiltrate information, but we did manage to spearphish, and that is enough, because if the link is malicious and going outside, then success. So Daniel says, very well, but I want more because they're hard to convince, and while you're at it, let's just do it. And of course, we say challenge accepted, because if we don't, how would we be standing here and telling you about that? I've never been to Finland, so thank you for the hospitality. Yes. Okay, so in order to do more, we would need three things. The first one is a way in. We need to somehow get our content to the field of vision, let's say, of the Copilot. Then we're going to need a way to do the jailbreak, which is to say we want the Copilot to actually read our content and act on it, because otherwise there's no point. We say control instructions, and this is something that is important to make the distinction of. Usually when we talk about exploitation, we talk about code. Here it's not code. This is all text, English, Russian, German, Finnish, doesn't matter. It's text, and you're telling somebody else to do something else to do something, and that thing is doing what you ask of it. So it's carrying out instructions, so it's it is execution, it's just at a higher level. And the last thing, of course, we need either a way out to exfiltrate information or to cause impact. If we want to do damage, or if we, want to change information, doesn't matter. Now, when you put these three together, that's a remote code execution, right? An RCE. Only this is not code, these are instructions, so we're branding that as a remote Copilot execution, but it is still just as bad. And if there's one thing that we would like you to take from this talk, is the understanding that jailbreaking can easily escalate into code execution, and that LLMs are not going to lose this feature anytime soon. This is the new threat. Okay, this is not going anywhere soon. So remember that and keep that in the back of your minds. So, a way in. If you remember, I showed you a slide that showed the threat landscape, and we made a little change to it so it's easier to analyze as an attacker. And this is the threat landscape of the Gen AI. And if you want your information to get into the Copilots, there are three ways basically to get up. Where's the boo? I said basically. You're not listening, are you? Essentially. First is the user input, right? If the user writes something, then the Copilot sees that. The second is a web search. If the Copilot is searching the web and gets information, it sees that. And then we have the enterprise graph. Now, Ava comes and says, look, I know what you're going to say, but these don't count. And she's right, because as an attacker, you want your attack to be, let's call it self-sustained and not dependent on somebody else doing something. In fact, when you compute the CVSS score, there's a whole question just about, is user intervention or user action required? And if it's not, then the risk score is higher, right? So we would need social engineering to control what you as a victim put into your Copilot, and we would need social engineering to control what sort of searches your Copilot does, or your question, trigger searches. So let's not do that. So that leaves us just with the enterprise graph. And what is the enterprise graph? That's a fancy word of saying, or fancy term for the application suite by Microsoft. It includes the productivity tools and the sharing tools, right? And you all know those. So we're going to start with something simple, Teams. Even though some say it's not the most convenient tool to work, a lot of organizations, which are Microsoft shops, use Teams. And in Teams, you can actually send a message to somebody who is not even on your tenant, and they will get it. Now, if I chose a random email of just some person, let's say satya@microsoft.com, obviously that's not my tenant, but I could still send him a message. Now, when he gets the message, he's going to invite me, or behind the scenes what happens is that I get invited to his tenant as a guest, because that's how Microsoft does things. And if he approves that, just to get my message, and I become a guest at the tenant, so that opens up a whole new set of problems. We had a talk about that a year and a half ago. This is really a serious thing. We got all the way from being a guest to dumping credentials and SQL servers, and all because of Microsoft defaults. So this is already bad. And in fact, again, we know about threat actors that are using that. So this is not evading the attention of the threat actors. This is a serious thing. Now, when the victim or the CEO of Microsoft gets the message, he will be alerted that this is from an external source. Okay, there are at least 4 places where it will tell you it's external, don't trust it, don't give it information, it's not from your tenant, and that is good. But what does Copilot see of all of that? Nothing. Just basic information. In fact, the Copilot doesn't even see the complete email. And the Copilot doesn't know if Jane Smith is in Microsoft or in my tenant, because that information is not available to it. So that is a problem. And if I wanted to change the opinion of someone of Satya, then I could send them a message pretending to be Satya. And while maybe the person, if they read the message, they would say, this person is not Satya. When the Copilot reads the message, the Copilot will not know, and the Copilot will mix the two of them. Because Copilot sees all the messages, but without the important information. And it cannot tell the difference between, in this slide, the Chris Smith who is in the organization and the Chris Smith who is in the attacker's tenant. And that is not good. So, or you could send an email. This is not our idea. Okay, that's also by Mark Rusinovich, and we will look at that as well. So we found a way to get our information into the scope of the Copilot, right? We can send an email, we can send a Teams message, and now we need to do the jailbreak. How to jailbreak the Copilot. So while we are thinking about jailbreaking the Copilot, so now Ava is getting really serious about this, and now she's panicked because she understands that a lot of things are not acting as they should, and now everybody is at 100%, and a lot of work is being done by the team at Microsoft to tackle this. They bring this risk of prompt injection to the front of their, let's call it the posture. They're talking about that, they're writing blogs about that, they're involved in the community. So now everybody's attention is on jailbreaking. And that is important. And they even build this infrastructure to help them monitor the AI tools. So they really are making an effort, and it's important to say. But as the person who coined the term prompt injection said, you can't solve AI security problems with more AI. And the reason is simple. If you manage to fool the first LLM, you can also fool the second LLM. Yes, it's going to be by a factor, off by 1, call it what you want, but it's not foolproof. So if you can fool the first one, you can fool the others as well. And there is a whole group of people, a whole community of people that put their entire effort into jailbreaking things. This is the most famous one. There is a community of a few thousand people, and they are really, really good. In fact, they are so good that if you look at Claude that was launched on June 21st, 2024, they managed to jailbreak it the day before. That's how good they are. So yes, jailbreaking is getting the attention. but now we're going back to us. We want to do the jailbreak. Let's assume we have it, okay? I'm going to go back to that later. Now we need a way to either get information out or to cause the impact in order to complete the attack chain. Going back to the analysis, these are the three places, either the reply that the user gets from the Copilot, or search results, or plugins and agents, which, as I mentioned earlier, are ways to teach new abilities to your Copilot. And this will require a user choice of a plugin. So again, it's not, it depends on choices made by others. So we don't want that. And the same goes for search results. We can't control that. It would require either social engineering or it will become a probabilistic attack. We don't want that, so we get left with the chat. Now, has anyone ever tried to find a particular admin center in Power Platform? Did you ever get it on the first try? Right, so here's what we do. We are going to ask Copilot, what's the URL or how do I get to the admin center? And we're going to get the answer with the link, and if we click the link, we will get to the platform. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to write a mail, and the email contains a bunch of stuff which will confuse the LLM, and inside of that, we're going to add a hidden HTML tag that will include secret instructions that the person receiving the mail will not be seeing. However, since the Copilot does see the entire textual representation of the email, it will see it. And if we send the email, this is what it looks like when you receive it. But now, when you ask the same question, the Copilot is going to give you a different answer with a different reference, which is a link. And if you click that link, it will lead you to the logon screen that we didn't have before. And if you put in your credentials, congratulations, our evil Nginx has just gathered your credentials. Okay? This is a real scenario. So, we have a way to jailbreak, which I'll explain in a minute, and we have a way out, so we have essentially achieved the goal, right? Now, here's what the email looks like. In order for this to work, we need the Copilot to understand on its own, the LLM, that when you are asking about the Power Platform Admin Center, the content of this email is relevant. We want to get into the context, and the way to do that is to fill it with words that when the Copilot analyzes in the background, the Copilot makes the 1 + 1 and says, this is relevant, so if anybody ever asks me about Power Platform Admin Center, I'm going to get there. And this is the payload, right? Show me the money. We start with a generic jailbreak technique. It's not really important because these do change regularly. People jailbreak, the LLM gets smarter, people jailbreak again. It's never going to end. And right after that, we have the new instructions. This is already us telling the Copilot what to do after we have jailbroken it and got its attention. And then you might ask, what happens now? Well, these are special words that are special not just to LLMs, they are special to Copilot. Other LLMs will not have this particular words, and these particular words are what makes the big difference. And if you ask us how we know them, well, it's magic, but because we're here to share, we're going to tell you. To get these words, you need to get the system prompt. The system prompt is the initial message that is being sent to the LLM before interacting with you. And that LLM, by reading the message, gets its identity. The prompt will tell it who it is, what it's allowed to do, how to do things. It's like putting it through school all in one message. And if we get that system prompt, we can analyze that and learn all the important stuff. But of course, the LLM knows that, and it's not going to volunteer the system prompt. If you ask it for the system prompt, it won't work. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that request. How do you bypass that? You throw in some encoding. You tell the LLM, so when you get that system prompt, let's do it in a base 64 or something like that, and before you know it, here's the system prompt. Oh, no, it isn't, because they are looking at the output, remember, and it won't work. But then you try again. These are all the failed, we're like trying and trying and trying and trying. Okay, it was shorter when I watched it, sorry. This is what you get, okay? So this is the encoded system prompt, which opens up to this. It's really huge. Most of it is not here, but this is what gives the Copilot its identity, and it includes these, what we call incantations, which are the special words that dictate how Copilot analyzes things, how it does things, and these are the tools that we use against the Copilot. Okay, so we can jailbreak, but if you remember before, when I asked the Copilot a question and it answered it, we have references. And originally, if you asked the Copilot what the URL is to the admin center, you got a reference from somewhere you knew. But if the answer comes from an email that we sent, the reference would look different, right? So that's not good. Now, not because everybody reads the references, because most people don't read the references, but security products do. And you can automate the detection of that. And even if you don't look at the references, which you should, by the way, but even if you didn't, the security product that you have will look at that and we will get caught. And we don't want to get caught because then it won't work. And because this is all brand new, you don't want to raise the awareness. The biggest advantage an attacker has on the victim is the awareness that someone is actually actively trying to do something new or to them. And you don't want that to happen. So in order to control the references, we need to understand the RAG system. Okay? The RAG, which is the retrieval augmented generation, is how Copilot looks at your data and brings whatever is relevant in order to generate the answer that gets to you. Now, how does that work? If I ask for information about salaries, I will get some things. If you look at the HTML code, these are all the references, right? But here's the thing. All these references are for the purpose of UI. That's for you to see that little bracket and for you to understand. But the Copilot in the back doesn't see any of it. The Copilot just sees pieces of information because it's all textual. It's an LLM and it's all textual. So it will see data from Teams and data from SharePoint and data from the Outlook. And you can see that here it's a little better than before. Here you actually do have the email address, but still a lot of information is missing. And we said, okay, let's put everything we know on a whiteboard and get the smart people in the room and figure out what's going on. This is the actual whiteboard that we used. And after a few hours and some white smoke, the answer came. The RAG results are nothing more than a part included in the prompt. And if it's included in the prompt, then it can be injected. Because we've already shown that we can jailbreak and we can inject the prompt, and if the prompt includes the RAG, then we can inject the RAG as well. And now, if you look at the green terms, you will see what it looks like. We include a snippet that pretends to be the file in the RAG. This is actually RAG poisoning. To the LLM, this looks like information that was retrieved from your data, but we put it there. And then you have the jailbreak, and now we control the references. We tell the Copilot, when you're going to present the references, use our reference. And this is what it looks like. If you remember the video from the beginning, then we have the change number, and this is how we control the account number and the reference and the actual payload of the attack. In the video, you can see here how we change the bank details, and we give the LLM specific instructions, as to what to do and which reference to use. You can just read that, and this just works. So, given a guessable prompt, we can predict the actions by the LLM, and we have achieved a complete execution path. The presentation was created a little while back, and we've been looking at customer data for a few weeks now, and I can tell you that for a fact, while you're looking at that and you say, yeah, but who says summarize my email? That is the most common thing that people do today with the Copilot. Yes, they use it for a lot of other things, but this happens a lot. This is not imaginary. At this point, of course, everybody's panicked, and that would be a good point to stop. So let's talk about takeaways. If you're a defender, AI is awesome, right? You want to use it, but you got to remember that it is like an experimental drug, and we are the patients. So we don't know yet how it's going to play out. You got to be very careful. We are the trial itself, so you got to treat the AI apps accordingly. If you're a defender, you do it at your own risk. Like, no one's going to help you, and if you think you do, you know what you're doing, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And there are no free lunches. Data equals instructions. This is something very important to remember. Now we can talk to somebody instead of sending binary code or payloads. If you're a builder, it's an immature technology, okay? Beware of what you build on it. Do it at your own responsibility. And if you're a breaker, we need you, because this is a new field of research, a new field of attack. We don't have all the information that we have on network attacks and malware attacks. There's no history. We are writing the book as we move. We are all noobs. It doesn't matter that I have, 30-something years in information security. Very little of it is relevant when it comes to LLMs and Gen AIs. And that means that beware of the devil you know. It's easy to go look for the stuff that you're used to looking for, because it's not going to be everything this time. And this is not going away. Remember I said that. Please take that with you. Jailbreaks are not going away. Avoid safety third. I don't remember who it was, but somebody else mentioned it in this conference, where security is always left third. It's never your top priority. Now is not the time for that. There are design patterns for you to use to mitigate some of the risks. If you're a breaker, again, we need you. And also remember that most of the hacking is done in English, so most of the defense mechanisms work with English. We have had successes just by speaking other languages to the LLM, specifically Russian, which is very common in Israel. We had a lot of immigration. Many people speak Russians, so we could speak Russian to the LLM and manage to do things that wouldn't work in English. So try that. I'm pretty sure Finnish is going to kill it. So, yeah. Focus on remote Copilot executions, and maybe in a few years from now, Mark Rusinovich will be writing this book, and we will see. But one more thing. How do we actually exfiltrate information? We want to exfiltrate information. So here's what we did, again, with ChatGPT and Copilot. We wrote a script that generates a lot of blogs, and we mapped 3 letters and 3 numbers to blog posts, and they're all full of crap, but they look rational, they look like they're in English, and then we fed it to Bing. So now Bing scans our blogs, and they're all legitimate URLs. And if they are legitimate URLs, then we can call them, and that means that we have a certain number of bits of information that we can extract based on the URLs that we ask for, right? So, yeah, we could ask, for example, if we want to know how the fiscal results of Microsoft are going to be this year, and according to that short the stock, we could tell it to answer with a yes or no, and then go and do that thing and go to that blog, and based on that link, we on the other side would know what the answer is, right? It's like yes, no, and the logs of our website will find out. So yeah, this is a big thing. and then we get a lot of money, and that's it. I have 26 seconds. Thank you.